Welcome to Toffee TV. It's the Premier League show. There's been no Premier League action this weekend. It's been glorious.
Weekend of my life.
It's been glorious. We're not talking about international football because
that's not
why.
Premier League.
But over on The Last Man Standing this week, they've been discussing Premier League partnerships and who is the greatest of them all. So let's hear what the lads have to say.
I was going to go for Rooney and Ronaldo. I went for Cole and York. The reason being the telepathy they had together, the combination, the goals that they scored. And not only that, we're talking about different people here, but Cole and York did it all, won all the marbles in the same season. Now, you might want to talk about how Kane and Son have got better statistics or something like that. But unless you do it together when it matters, there's no point. And Cole and York did it together when it matters. One of the most underrated English strikers about in Andy Cole. He was doing it in Europe. Then when we look at the teams that those boys teared apart, obviously in the Premier League they did it, but then you look in Europe as well, against the defences of Juventus, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, these boys were tearing them up.
York and Cole, that was a good one.
That was a fantastic partnership,
it was.
York and Cole, because Manchester United had, obviously, Sheringham, and they had Solskjaer. I mean, 4 unbelievable strikers.
Yeah.
But that partnership was that was the real partnership, and that was the go-to partnership. Obviously, remember the semi-final in Turin for the Champions League? It was unbelievable. What a game that was.
Then they scored that goal in Barcelona where one dummy it and he flicked that.
They were just on the same wavelength. They were mates. They made things look so simple, and it was just a joy to watch. And it's something you don't really see in the Premier League too much anymore. We don't have partnerships because we don't play 4-4-2 or something like that. Obviously, a lot of teams play 3 now, and maybe you can go, well, you say 2. I mean, you look at something like Tottenham, into what Son and your son, Kane, and that kind of, and we'll come on to that. But there are still partnerships, but these were real partnerships. When football was slightly different. When I was a lad, it was all about playing 4-4-2. It was all about those partnerships, and that's always been a big thing in football. And it's quite sad actually that's gone out of football. But it has changed now. It has changed. But York and Cole were absolutely phenomenal, and a big part of why Manchester United got the treble that year.
There was also, obviously, I think Lee mentions in the thing, there was Bergkamp and Henry.
Yeah.
They were brilliant as well. Dennis Berg. It was weird because both of them almost dropped in and picked the ball up. Then Bergkamp was like more of a number 10, and Henry started wide and, was like a more modern day striker.
But what was interesting about that is it obviously started out with Bergkamp and Wright, and they were a really good partnership as well. I mean, anyone who played with Bergkamp was going to be good, but him and Henry were unreal. And you're right, they both wanted to pick it up deep. But I think Bergkamp and Wright was a proper number 9, and Bergkamp was a proper number 10. And that's what helped start the evolution, and then Henry came into it, and they got that helped get more out of Wright in his sort of final years at Arsenal. But
there's been brilliant like Beardsley and Cole with Newcastle when they came up. Strachwell, Hershey and Velios.
It was that was very underrated. Very underrated.
Could have
blossomed into something.
If they'd have stayed together, injuries.
Who knows? Who knows?
Could have talked about Everton winning all sorts back in the day.
Oh yeah.
But you're right. Those partnerships they have kind of moved away because the way football has changed. And it is sad in a way, because it was always about the 2 strikers, getting goals. And I think some teams suffer because they don't have to. You put the ball in the net on a regular basis the way you had it back in the day kind of thing. But football, like you say, has evolved, and more often than not you have wide strikers as well. No?
What's funny about it, just before we move on to some more, is what's funny about it, I think, is we talk now in terms of like the stats of the game and where to be in teams as XG and XA and all these kind of things. But football, when we played 4-4-2 and we had 2 up front, it's funny how the things we talk about now, pressing is another big thing. It's like these things weren't invented; they just had new names now, and those things were there. And the thing, going back to the XG and XA, is that when you're a partnership, it was normally like a big and a little, wasn't it? Or a 9 and a 10, just dropping off a little bit. Is that strikers instinctively, when they were in partnerships, knew where to run? So one would go near post and one would go far post. And that's the thing, it's like that. That's where you talk about XG and XA and that thing of like, if you make certain runs and we put the ball in certain areas, you'll score goals. That's a big part of those stats now, the zones and stuff. And yet that used to be instinctive because one would go to the near post and one would go to the back post. And a winger would always know that if he put the ball into the box in one of those areas, one of those strikers would always be there and someone would always get an opportunity. And that's what's funny about football, is like it's tried to reinvent itself with using certain terms and saying, you know, but a lot of it is Emperor's New Clothes. A lot of it is just recycling stuff that we used to see when we were younger. When you, as a striker, you listen to any striker who played in the 80s and the 90s and they'll say to you, as a partnership, you always knew where to run because you always knew where the other one was going to be. Or if the other one had already made that run, then you'd make a different run. And it would give wingers so many options. I mean, I don't know whether it's up there, but Sutton and Shearer made a part.
What's dead interesting? We'll have a look at the graphic because these are the by goals, by stats.
Okay.
These are the best partnerships that we've been. So we've got obviously Kane and Son are the number one. They broke the record last week. They're 37 goals made for each other. Drogba and Lampard.
Is
with
that
36.
That's not a part. I'm
Well,
not having
it's,
that.
It's who made the goals.
No,
So
I'm not
this is
having
the
that.
stats. Aguero and David Silva, who's again not
Fair
a
enough.
partnership, but they made it. Obviously, Henry and Robert Pires. So interesting that Pires and Henry made more goals for each other.
Yeah.
Darren Anderton and Teddy Sheringham at top.
See, a lot of them. See, I'll dispute a few of them because they're not partnerships. What they are is a lot of them show how we moved away from 4-4-2.
Yeah.
But they're not partnerships for me.
No,
That's a slightly separate.
I think like Kane and Son, because they play in a three, I think you could argue they were a partnership.
But going back to what I was just saying there about someone like Blackburn won the league by having two strikers who were good in the air and two wingers who would put the ball in certain areas. Yeah. And that was a partnership. And you might, to me, that's a proper partnership because those forwards knew where to be and knew where the other one was going to be. And they are two wingers who put the balls into the box. And it meant that you always had someone in the right areas. That's a partnership to me. Doesn't matter who crossed it. Crossing is part of the game. It should be, it's somebody's job to do that. That to me is not like, I wouldn't applaud someone for putting a cross into the box. Well, I think the centre forwards, and this is obviously, your stats can't really show this, is that a true partnership shouldn't be who passed to the other one. It's who makes the runs. It's getting deeper into it. And I do think that, I mean, some of them, they're nonsense. Teddy Sheringham and...
No, but their goals are creative for each
I
other.
know, but
it's the most goals
that's
created. And that's why people... Well, yeah, it's like, when we talk about partnerships, and obviously, as Adam was saying there, like York and Cole, that was a proper partnership. Shearer and Sutton, like you said, you know, we go back even before the Premier League for Everton, when Everton were good, and like Heath and Sharp and Lineker and Sharp and then Gray.
Because it's hard to define, isn't it?
Because
Terry Sheringham might be scoring the goals there at Anderton, but Les Ferdinand's making the alternative run. And it's all those things that you can't, that they're like really basic stats. But if you went deeper into that, you'd find out that Les Ferdinand made a decoy run. Or when Ferdinand and Shearer were together at Newcastle, same thing again.
Brilliant.
Cross. You know, Keith Gillespie on one side, Ginola on the other side, say. Yeah. And you know, if you keep putting that ball in the box, it's either going to be Ferdinand or Shearer. And because there's one taking a defender away and the other one's got, that's a partnership to me. It's not who put the ball in the box. That's their job.
When you think of partnerships, it is linking up with your strike partner, isn't it? It's like you two would go out in the pitch and be like, we're doing this today. I always played in the two or whatever. You'd be like, come on, work these, you know, I'll go here, you press there. And all of that. And it's all the intangible stuff, the stuff that isn't coming down on stats and going, well, he linked with him and all that. And that is, we have moved away from that because obviously, if you look at it, like Mane and Salah for Liverpool have got a lot of goals, haven't they? But people wouldn't say they're a partnership.
But then
they're in a front three.
Firmino pulls people out.
Firmino does like arguably the most important job at times for them, and he wouldn't be considered.
It is mad the way football has changed now. And now, twos have become threes and or just one, and
But if you're talking about statistics, then Son and Kane are the best.
Yeah, and
because
that's
they've had the
what's
most
good
goals.
about that is though they are pretty much nearly good like a proper partnership.
Yeah.
So that's fit. That is there's like what's good about that is that you've got the modern thing of shit. You know, Kane likes dropping deep or Son likes dropping deep, but also they are both forwards, so it isn't that thing of like Anderton throwing crosses into the box and Terry Shane. That's nonsense. That like that's a prop. There is a genuine evolution there of a real partnership. Sometimes I know they don't always play as a two, but that is a real evolution.
Would you look more than with the strikers, the goals they've got then as a part? Because that's how I always looked at a partnership with me and you were up front. I got 20 and you got 20. It'd be like, what a partnership.
But you've just said it there, like Cole and if you go back to Cole's and what he did at Manchester United, and that partnership was, they were always scoring goals, but they were always moving into different space to allow the other one. And then, you've got Beckham on one side and you've got Giggs on the other. Yeah. And it's the way that they knew instinctively. York, they weren't both big fellas, but they did score a lot of headed goals. But it meant Beckham and Giggs always had a target, because one would run post, one would pull off, and then Sheringham would come on, and Sheringham was brilliant at was Sheringham actually didn't engage the space. He stayed in the space. He let other people move, and he stayed, and then people learned his game. And that to me is a real partnership. That's to me something that's gone out of the game, and I understand why tactics have changed. But that was that old-fashioned real partnership of knowing where someone else is going to be instinctively was a real. Something that was around in football for 50, 60 years. It's only gone out of the game in the last 10, 15 years. It was something that always, as we were growing up, was such a
some teams still, Burnley had like Barnes and Wood, didn't he, for, in the 4-4-2, and Southampton played 4-4-2, so, you'd look for a partnership there, Adams and Brozier or Adams and Armstrong.
Like you said, that Spurs one is probably the most modern one out of it all. It still holds on to the traditions, but obviously it's changed as well. But then at the same time, though, what's interesting is that some of those graphics. Put that graphic back on for us, Ned. Chelsea successful, City successful, Thierry Henry, Perez, but the Spurs. The two Spurs ones are not successful. That's what's interesting. One's top and one's fifth. There's no success there, which is really interesting. The other three, of course, did have success, but that's an interesting part.
Even Lampard, isn't it?
But we know that's the way they played. They played with one up front.
No, I know.
Lampard was the free role,
but it's not.
It's just interesting that the both Spurs ones never gained any success from it. So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
I think, and obviously from that then. When you're looking at it like that, but the game has moved on. But Harry Kane, who is top there, him and Son, he's developed unbelievably well, hasn't he? Yeah. And another discussion point on this week's Last Man Standing was who's the better England striker, Harry Kane or Wayne Rooney? Harry Kane is exceptional. He really is. He's brilliant. He's developed later than Wayne Rooney. He's had a different path to get to the top. But he's developed his all-round game, dropping in, picking the ball up, as well as scoring goals, picking people off. Wayne Rooney, more natural. For me, I was on it from 16, doing it. So and he's obviously England's all-time record goal scorer, Manchester United.
But he won't be for long.
Goal scorer. Well, at this moment, at time of discussion,
yeah, but he won't be for long.
He is. But I just think, for me personally, I think Rooney's a better player.
But I think Harry Kane's a better England player. I do personally. I think he's a better England player. I think he scored more important goals than Rooney did. Rooney barely scored past his first Euros in a tournament. It never clicked for him, mostly because of injuries. But it never really clicked for him. He's an important player. Don't get me wrong, he is the leading goal scorer. But Kane will take that off him, and I just think Kane plays in a better England team as well.
Yeah,
it's a better England team, and also the thing with Kane is. Kane plays the same position he plays for his club that he does for his country. Rooney never. Rooney played up front for England, and then went and played for Man United everywhere. Yeah. And I think...
Who do you think's the better footballer?
Well, Rooney. Rooney's more natural talent, much better. But I think this argument is like the same with Messi and Ronaldo. Yeah. Ronaldo is a much better international player than Messi is, but Messi's just a better player, as far as I'm concerned. But Ronaldo's a better international player. Because when it comes to the crunch, when you've got those 2 games or that tournament, Ronaldo has always stepped up. Messi hasn't quite, because Messi not relies, but he brings other people into the game. And he hasn't always had that at Argentina, where Ronaldo's the type of fella who has got the ego and the presence to step up at that one moment. And that might just be an amazing header off a set piece or a penalty. So I think, listen, for me, Wayne Rooney's much better footballer. But for England, I think Kane will get that record. And listen, what I would say about Kane is we're going into the World Cup and England have got a genuine chance of winning the World Cup. They're not favourites, but I think they've got a genuine chance. And like the Euros, it's Harry Kane. And look at the Euros, the way in the Euros where Harry Kane didn't start well, didn't look fit, played his way into the tournament and started scoring goals. And by the end of it was an important figure. I don't think Wayne Rooney ever quite did that. Wayne Rooney's, the injuries he took into tournaments never allowed him. And then you seen with the documentary about him, he gets angry, he gets frustrated, he does something stupid because his body's not maybe doing what he wanted to do. I just think Kane's going into his peak in a World Cup this year, and people genuinely will go, you can win as the World Cup. I don't think Wayne Rooney passed maybe his first World Cup, 2006. I don't think anyone after that really thought Wayne Rooney was going to win a World Cup for England, because I don't think he had the people around him to do that. Past 2006.
He had like Lampard and Gerrard, don't people? Like.
But I think 2006, they were all in the peak, weren't they? I think 2010, they were all, not on the wane, but just as a team, it was a bit more of a transition. They were coming out of that golden generation.
They didn't get up the group, did they?
Yeah, and 2010, Germany beat them, didn't he? When Lampard had the shot and went over the line, but they ended up getting me 4-1. So I think Rooney had to carry a lot of very, very average players, whereas Kane's got a good team around him, and of course that's going to make you a better player. I mean, and Rooney just, as I say, every tournament something
wasn't quite right,
and yet his first tournament, what could have been? 2004 in the Euros.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Kane may well be, at that level, may well be the one who actually does something for England where Wayne didn't. I mean, I remember having this kind of discussion over Robbie Fowler and Michael Owen.
Yeah.
And it was like, who would you rather have in your England team? And it was Michael Owen. But who'd you rather have in your Premier League team? It was Robbie Fowler, because Fowler was just a better player. Left foot, better finisher, more natural.
But
Michael
Owen was a robot.
Blistering pace and was clinical, but for England, really good, where Fowler was one a bit like Ian Wright's another one a bit like that when he played for England, not quite the same, but club level, devastating. Yeah. And maybe
very much like Leighton Baines.
Yeah, very much like Leighton Baines. But maybe that's what it is, isn't it? Is that you just need a little slightly I mean, Steven Gerrard, what an unbelievable footballer. Paul Scholes, unbelievable footballers. Premier League, just different class.
There's a lot of that comes down to the managers and the press and people having the bottle to play the team they want to play. Because what has happened in the last 3 or 4 years, no, it's like 5 years now, isn't it? Gareth Southgate has got the bollocks to play the team he wants, to drop who he wants, to pick who he wants. Doesn't give a monkeys. We've seen that this week. England have played, people boo Harry Maguire, and after the game's come out and gone, what are you doing? This is supposed to be. We've worked really hard to change this England setup so that it's about getting the most out of these young lads, getting rid of all, making sure all the people in the media are not going to come in and cause trouble. And usually come in the match, booing one of the players who scored really important goals in World Cups and stuff. What are you doing? And I think that's massively important to get that. So the players are like, this fella, I want to play for him. I want to play for him. The whole thing has changed for England, where people go, yeah, I actually don't mind this England team now. They've got good lads who seem all good lads. And I think that's a big part of it. Whereas previously the press had too much power and they got on the backs of all the managers, and then the managers were like, ooh, if I don't pick him, and then you had all the cliques, Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, whereas Southgate seems to have sorted all that out. And I think that's why he's got to a semi-final World Cup and a final of the Euros, because he's really got people together, you know. So
can they win it in Qatar?
No, they're all too pale.
Air-conditioned stadium should be fine.
I know, but that's sun.
Air-conditioned stadium.
Saying that though, there aren't too many gingers.
No.
So they should be all right.
Be fine.
Don't pick any gingers for this World Cup.
Just leave it.
Just leave the gingers at home. Honestly, it wouldn't last 5 minutes. No. Telling you now.
So you're not going?
I'm not going. No, I'm not going. I'm going to stay away. Listen, I went to Vegas, nearly killed me.
Yeah.
That was nothing to do with that. What happens in Vegas? Right. That desert landscape not for a ginger. Might as well be a vampire.
Okay, on that note, let's leave it there. There you go. So let us know what you think is which is the best.
But if anyone out there wants to pay for us to go to Qatar as part of any kind of marketing or sponsorship deal, I will slap on the factor 100.
Factor 150.
I mean, you know, I go to Orlando, it's factor 50. Qatar, I'm thinking maybe more 100. Yeah, 100.
Double dip. So make sure you check out the rest of that video. The link is in the description. Leave a comment on the BetVictor website there with your thoughts on the best partnership and all of that. And can England win the World Cup? There you go. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. We'll see you later.